Hello, Jerry here with episode number 6 of Ask Jerry Tachoir. I've been getting a lot of great questions in the last couple of weeks, and if you'd like to ask me questions, simply go to my website, www.tachoir.com, Tachoir.com. Click on the Contacts tab and enter your information and ask your question, and I'll get back in touch with you. Today's question comes from Mike in Pasadena. Hello, Jerry. I've seen you perform a number of times with both the Jerry Tachoir group and your Tachoir duo. I've always commented on the amazing clarity and accurate acoustic vibe sound you get. Thank you. Could you please elaborate on your miking and amplification techniques, microphones versus pickups? So this is a question I seem to get a lot of from different vibraphone players around the world. And it's a hard one because as a vibraphone player, being an acoustic instrument, primarily acoustic instrument, we obviously want to be heard. The best way to be heard is to take the sound, the natural sound of the instrument, and through the use of some really good quality microphones, pick up that sound and amplify it out to the audience. So let me begin by saying, first of all, when I got started, obviously I was an acoustic vibraphone player, and if I wanted to play loud, that's the only way you could hear me, is I would have to play loud or play soft and use my dynamics. Later on, the Musser Company came out with something called the Oliver Pickup, and it was basically two simple bars that attached to the frame, one on this rail and one on this rail, and they acted pretty much as magnetic guitar pickups. In other words, when you hit the bar would vibrate, and the vibration of the metal against the magnetic pickup would basically enhance the sound and amplify it. I bought a set of those and tried them, and to be honest with you, they didn't work very well. You heard more of the actual attack of the mallets hitting the bar than you heard of a good vibraphone warm fundamental sound. So after listening to that for a while and realizing that that wasn't working, I went back to microphones. My father bought me some nice microphones, and I used those for a while. I had a little amplifier that I would take with me, and I would set up my two microphones pretty much like you have here in the studio, aiming at the instrument and using my amplifier to then pick up the vibraphone. Well, what I found out is as you're playing, you have to have the microphones far enough away from your bars so that you don't actually hit the microphone while you're playing. So by moving the microphones further away from your bars, not only are you picking up the vibraphone, but you're picking up whoever else is around you, the drummer, the piano player, the guitar player, the audience, whoever. It's also picking that up. So it's not a perfect situation. So then, a few years after that, I bought a set of pickups from Ray Ayotte in Canada. They were called the Ayotte Sensor System. And basically they were a little bit different than the Oliver in that they did have the two rails, but the difference was each one of the bars had and they were actually quartz earthquake sensors, but they were glued on the bottom of each one of the bars, and then those wires would feed into those rails that I talked about, and then you can plug it into a PA system or an amp. So I used that for a number of years, and it was a little bit better. You could actually hear the vibe sound as much, but you still heard the attack of the mallets hitting the bars. So after a while, I got away from that, and I went back again to acoustic vibraphone, and I bought some better microphones. I bought some nice, these are Audio-Technica, but nice condenser microphones that I use. And the condenser microphones need a phantom power system to power the microphones, but they're very clean signal and something that I use in the recording studio, and I try to use in live performances as much as possible. They're very sensitive mics and they work very well. This gave me the sound that I was really looking for. Then a few years later, I got in touch with, or actually they got in touch with me, K&K system, and they're based in Germany. They made basically the same thing as the Ayotte Sensor System, but a little bit better in quality. So again, they had two rails that attached to the frame, And then you had to take these little contact microphones and put them and glue them on each one of the bars, which then fed into the rails. And this one was powered. It had to actually be plugged into something to give it power to work. And I used that for a number of years, and it seemed to be, again, better quality, but it still had that kind of unnatural, attacky sound of the mallets hitting the bars, and you heard a kind of a boomy quality to it. So I got away from that, went back to, I play an acoustic vibraphone, and I use mics. And I try to position the microphones in such a way that I could pretty much aim them at the instrument that I'm playing, and that seems to work very well. There was one point where a good friend of mine, fellow vibes player who recently passed, Dave Samuels, he turned me on to something that was really cool, and I used it for a long time too. It was a PZM, and it's an LV2 lavalier microphone. Basically, it clipped on my shirt, and it fed into a little backpack, and then you had to use phantom power again because it was a condenser microphone. But I used this, and it was really cool in that as you moved, the microphone being right here moved with you, and it just produced a great sound. And then I could go over to the marimba, and I could play the marimba the same way with the same kind of the treatment that I was giving it with this PZM, and it worked very well. Now the problem with this microphone was you would hit it. It was on you, so a lot of times you would hear shirt noises or your mallet might brush up against it. So you had to be real careful about how you treated the microphone. The nice thing about it is that your body acted as a baffle. So the drums and everything that was behind you then would not get into the microphone because, again, your body is acting as a baffle to prevent the sound from getting in. And I really like that setup. And they unfortunately discontinued that microphone, so it is no longer available. But the concept is still there, and I'm sure you can find other microphones that would do basically the same thing as this PZM. It's a battle to try to amplify this instrument. It's always been a challenge for everybody. We want to be heard. Fortunately, with my band, when I do a sound check, since I'm the leader, I'm able to talk to the sound man and say, look, the vibraphone is the primary instrument. It has to be heard. So I work with the sound man and try to get a really nice quality sound. Now, you have to be careful with sound men in terms that they're used to EQing things a certain way. They see the vibraphone and they see it as a kind of a brighter instrument, so they always have a tendency of wanting to really enhance the high end of the instrument, which then gives you a very thin, brittle, a kind of overbearing, high-ended sound on the instrument. So what I do is I talk to the sound man and I say, look, let's cut the highs a little bit, let's boost the mid-range, maybe 3 dB, and then leave everything else pretty flat. And that's how I get a really nice acoustic vibraphone sound. Again, the battle is there. We have to try to do whatever we can do to be heard. And if anybody else has any other suggestions on how to amplify this instrument cleanly, I would appreciate it. So thank you so much for your question, and hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.